I would like to invite and wish our enthusiastic President, Dr. Panneerselvam sir, and the Vice President, Sabrin Ross sir, and the Secretary, Sivalango sir, and our most beloved Dr. P.P. Kannan, and all other dignitaries who have made their time to come over and make this online session a beautiful one. The topics, two topics which have been chosen are quite apt, and both the speakers, we know that they are quite capable and are able to deliver what they usually do. So in that aspect, this is going to be a very special one. I'm sure of that. And what is more important is that it is a significant occasion today, October 10th, wherein we find that a lot of institutions, a lot of hospitals, a lot of clinics, and many people, psychiatrists, both in the government and the private side, have come together to spread awareness as per the call given by the Honorable President, which is quite something. And hopefully, by keeping on this momentum, I'm sure that the Tamil Nadu IPS and being part of the central IPS, I'm sure that we can take our specialty and the practitioners of psychiatry to a much better height. This involves not only the welfare of the physicians, but also that of the patients for whom we care. So first topic is protection and promotion of rights of participants with mental illness by Dr. N. Rajesh Kannan, and the second topic would be rights of persons with mental illness from paper to practice by our very own Shabari Sridhar sir. So excellent topics and excellent speakers. So without much further ado, I would like to hand over the session to our beloved friend, Dr. Sivabalan. Sivabalan, over to you, please.
Thank you, sir. Since Dr. Arul has elaborated brief note about this particular program, this is very important initiative by Dr. Panneerselvam and other the Tamil Nadu IPS and office bearers. Especially for this program, this is the special day, the World Mental Health Day. This is a very important topic we are going to discuss, and we are also having a very energetic young speaker for this particular program. So without wasting much time, I first invite our Tamil Nadu IPS President, Dr. Panneerselvam, to say a few words about this particular program. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sivabalan. Dear esteemed member of Tamil Nadu IPS, first I give a warm greetings to all of you. Today is a World Mental Health Day, and it's good to see that many of our members are doing a lot of activities, community awareness activities. And I request all the members to send the details of your programs, photos with the details, so that you can have it, you can press it in the newsletter. So already the newsletter, first newsletter from July to this September is almost, the work is completed. We'll be releasing within a couple of days, the newsletter will be released. So this current, from October onwards, whatever the programs you are doing it, you send it to the newsletter committee or the community awareness committee. I inform their contact numbers in our TNIPS WhatsApp group. So that we are, the TNIPS also planning to issue honor them with a certificate. Actually, in every our programs like our practices CME programs and other PGCM programs, so we want to honor the people who really do a community work. So we issue a certificate. And also the people who have been doing the work, we have a newsletter, and your photos or activities will be there. Find a place in the newsletter also. So you please save all your activities, and you can send the photo to me or our committee members. And we have named this Tuesday webinar as an Enrich webinar. We named it as Enrich, so that probably it will get a lot of attraction to our members as well as the postgraduates also. So we are planning to do it on every second Tuesday from 8 to 9 p.m. And today, as the theme of this this World Mental Health Day is mental health is a universal human rights. And this World Mental Health Day forms on this October 10th. And also we have our Enrich Webinar also falls on the same date. So the today topic is a very interesting topic, especially for all the mental health professionals. We should aware what are all the rights of the person with mental illness. Unfortunately, patients with mental illness face a wide range of human right violations. They're facing the stigma, discrimination, social isolation. Many people are being admitted involuntarily, even with the minor problems. They want to get admitted the patient in an institution for a longer period. And some of the patients have been not, their relatives are not coming to pick up the patients from the hospital, even though they have been improved. And also we can see a lot of, we can news about the people, these people with the mental illness are abused physically, sexually, they have been, they're getting abused, and they have been neglecting. And some of the people with the mental illness are denied the basic amenities like food, shelter, and sanitation. Any employer come to know the patient has a mental illness, denying giving the employment for the patients. So our new legislations, mainly the focus is on rights of the mental illness. That you all know that Section 21 describe about the rights of the person with mental illness in our Mental Health Care Act. With a small introduction, I hope both the speaker, Dr. Sabri sir and Dr. Rajesh, will throw more light on these persons with mental illness human rights. So over to you, Dr. Sivabalan.
Now I invite Dr. P.P. Kannan, instrumental in all the scientific activity across the state. Sir, I actually invite you, sir, to say a few words about this program.
It is everybody's responsibility to be pushing for scientific aspects. So, about these topics, good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this program. The topics selected by our president and speakers, it's very apt and in need of the hour. I have been part of this National Forum on Mental Health Care Act. Some of the members also part of that. What I had understood is many of them believe this Mental Health Care Act 2017 is restricting their practice. I think this is very unfortunate. Another important thing is they believe that is mental illness is equal to physical illness. Even today, the previous House Zone Secretary was frequently equating and questioning the Mental Health Review Board. I think the fundamentals need to be explained and so that people can, even the seniors can understand that so well. Some people are so happy about immersing themselves in populism. All these things distorting our orientation towards rights of mentally ill person. I think the speakers, Dr. Sabri Sridhar and Dr. Rajesh Kannan would throw light on this. The concept of rights are very difficult. The person who is living in village and the person who is living in a cosmopolitan, the rights are different. Perceived by them, the society's view on them, on the rights are completely different. Similarly, the practitioners who are working inside IMH, who are working outside, completely detached from any institutions and doing a private practice, the perception about rights are completely different. I think these are all areas which we need to educate ourselves, and we have to share our experiences frequently on the rights of a person with mental illness. I think both speakers would help us to understand the depth related to rights issues. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Sivalangu, sir. Sivasalam, sir.
Dr. Sivasalam had told us that informed us through message in the box, message box, that he is not available.
Okay. So shall we directly go to the session? Now I invite our chairperson, Dr. Arun Saraman, to start the session. Thank you.
I would like to request Dr. Rajesh Kannan, our first speaker, to start off with this presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, at the outset, I would like to thank Tamil Nadu IPS President, sir, and other office dignitaries and members of the Scientific Forum for giving me this opportunity, especially on such an important day observed worldwide. So, and my topic lies in line with the theme of today's program. So, protection of rights of persons with mental illness as well as promotion of their rights. So, I would like to start the meeting with a brief introduction on what is human rights, why it is important, and history of human rights and history of rights of persons with mental illness in the last half a century. And I would be speaking about various rights narrated in the Mental Health Care Act and practice principles for protecting their rights. So the term human rights was defined by Edmondson in 2004 as these are the basic rights that every human being possesses by virtue of the fact that they are just human beings. So these are the basic minimal requirements or things without which a human being, it is impossible to develop one's capabilities and to live as a human being. They are the birthrights of any human being, and it need not be granted, and it is claimed they are entitled to have this legally as well as morally. So no other qualification is required. They need not belong to any particular group or any particular religion or a party or a geographical area. So everyone by birth in this globe, they have this basic human rights. And why it is important to know about the human rights of persons with mental illness is that human rights issues are an undeniable fact in psychiatric practice. So right from a century ago, where institutional care was the only mode of treatment, involuntary admissions and other forms of coercive treatment like unmodified ECT were reasons for violations of human rights, as well as scarce resources like establishment of various mental health care resources is not evenly distributed, and it is underfunded, and they face all forms of abuse from emotional abuse to physical abuse. So it is a duty of the government to make all efforts for a social inclusion and provide equal opportunity for all the members of the nation. And as like any other individual in the nation, mentally ill also has entitled those all human and fundamental rights. And in addition to the basic rights, persons with mental illness also have the remedial rights, the rights that restore their dignity as well as that work on the path of recovery. So some historical facts. So it all started with post World War II, and since persons with mental illness are often isolated, stigmatized, and humiliated, and they are prone for marginalization, most of the mental health organizations in the globe focused on these four important things. One is to protect the rights of mentally ill. Another is to provide the standard quality of care. So uniform quality of care of international standards, as well as use various political and administrative reforms, allocating adequate budget for mental health care, as well as involvement of the consumer. That is, the patient has the right to take part in the decisions that is going to affect their life. So these are important instruments in determining about the human rights and rights for providing freedom, justice, and peace to all members of the world. And the most important thing and the most fundamental thing is Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted in 1948. So it contains 30 articles, and its details about the basic rights and fundamental freedom. And another important thing is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that is UNCRPD. In addition to it, we have Declaration of Hawaii by the World Psychiatry in 1992 that formulated various regulations for conducting research over and ethical treatment of mentally ill persons. So the Universal Declaration's preamble runs like this: the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And it is essential uh, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, and that human rights by all costs has to be protected by the law. So, adopted as a common standard of achievement for all the people and all the nations, the UDHR commits nations to recognize all as human beings born free and equal in dignity, so regardless of any discrimination. So the Article 3 of UDHR is fundamental for the other articles, which says that all the human rights is it roots on the right to life, liberty, and security of a person. In addition to it, Article 20 to 26 of UDHR describes about the equality and the political participation of the members of the society, right to have a standard of living to maintain their physical and mental well-being. So, as WHO has stated that state of health is nothing but physical as well as mental and social well-being. So, it is a duty of the member nations to protect the basic human rights of its members. So, human rights violation is not it's not nothing new to persons of mental illness staying in India, and this is the tip of the iceberg where we all know about the 2001 Yerwadi tragedy. Nearly 30 people were burned to death since they were chained. Though Philip Finnell has described about unchaining of the persons with mental illness in some 200 years ago, still we are in a situation where we are not able to provide a dignified treatment to those persons with mental illness. So even in 2019, nearly thousands of people were chained. It was found in a city called Badaun in Uttar Pradesh. So these are some of the Indian instruments on human rights, starting from the National Mental Health Program in 1982 and the Mental Health Act of 1987. So Mental Health Act is basically an act to regulate the various types of admission. Though it touched upon rights of persons with mental illness, it need not have a elaborative discussion on the rights, protection of the various rights. And Persons with Disability Act in 1995, it is a significant step which ensures equal opportunities for the people with disabilities. The Act provides for both the preventive as well as promotional aspects of rehabilitation, like education, providing equal employment and vocational training. And then comes the National Mental Health Policy in 2014, which is a major leap in the protection of persons with mental illness. So, the Persons with Disability Act of 1995 was subsequently replaced by Rights of Persons with Disability Act of 2016, which came into force in 2017. And from 7 disabilities, nearly 21 disabilities were included in the recent act. And we all know that the recent mental health care legislation in India is Mental Health Care Act of 2017, which is mainly a right-based act. So, Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disability in 2006, adopted by the United Nations, is an important document in protecting those persons with disabilities. So previously, it was mainly about all the human beings, and in this millennia, this is the first document to speak about the basic rights of persons with disabilities. And it defines as it is a duty of the signatories to protect, promote, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities, and to promote respect for their inherent dignity. So it classifies disabilities into various types, like those who have a long-term physical, mental, as well as intellectual impairment. And because of the impairment, they suffer a disability, and that disability hinders their full participation in the society. So the 4 principles of this UNCRPD on which the Mental Care Act is laid upon is respect for the inherent dignity of an individual and individual autonomy. So, and independence of the persons, and non-discrimination with full and effective participation and social inclusion. So mostly this mental health, persons with mental health illness are ostracized from the society, and they live as a separate group, and they are not included for their societal participation. And another core principle is the respect for difference and diversity of human beings, accessibility of basic healthcare, and gender indifference. So India signed the CRPD and ratified the Act on 2007. So it is for the first time, it is a legally binding international instrument which now exists to guarantee that states have uh, a duty to promote and protect the rights of persons with disability. So it is upon on this international instrument the Mental Health Care Act is based upon. So the two most objective of Mental Health Care Act is to provide mental care services for persons with mental illness and to promote and protect the rights of persons during delivery of the mental health services. So it is a progressive act when compared to the previous 1987 Act, and it is patient-centric, more of right-based. So these are the important rights which the patients have, and Chapter 2 deals with mental capacity. So Section 3 of Mental Health Care Act says that mental illness can be determined only on the basis of standard guidelines, and it should not be diagnosed on basis of any political, economical, or social status. And if suppose the person belongs to a particular group, so it should not be based upon these facts that, and they are not they don't conform to a particular moral or social standards. So mental illness is not equivalent to unsound mind unless it is declared by a competent authority. So Section 4 speaks about the mental capacity. Any person is deemed to have a mental capacity to make decisions regarding his mental care and treatment if he meets any of these three criteria. So it is not all the three, it is any of the three. If he is able to comprehend the information that is given to him regarding his treatment and treatment plan, or if he is able to acknowledge the fact that what may be the foreseeable consequences, either accepting the decision or not having the decision. Or number three is if he is able to communicate the decision through any means of communication. It may be speech or expression or a gesture. So if he has any of these three, if he meets the criteria, he is deemed to have the capacity to make decision regarding this mental health care treatment. Even if the decision is perceived as inappropriate by others, including doctors, it should not mean that the person does not have the mental capacity. So this is a important part of the mental capacity, which protects the rights of the persons. And Section 5 in Chapter 3 speaks about the advance directive. So it is the right any person has to give in a writing that what is the way he wishes to be treated and not to be treated. So Section 5 deals with advance directive. So every person has a right to make an advance directive. It is like a living will in writing. So they can also appoint a nominated representative, and they have the right to revoke, amend, or cancel the advance directive any part of the time. But it is not applicable during emergency treatment of any persons, where we can treat up to 72 hours according to Section 94. So Chapter 4 deals with the nominated representative. So any person has a right to appoint a nominated representative. It is not applicable to minors, and they also have the right to change appointment anytime. And it is very important to note that appointment of a nominated representative or the inability to do so does not mean that he lacks the mental capacity. So appointment is not to be construed as the lack of mental capacity. And Chapter 5 deals with the various rights of persons with mental illness. They have 11. They have elaborated about 11 basic rights any person with mental illness will have. And the first section is to have the right to access basic mental health care. So it is incumbent on the government that it is the duty of the government to provide a basic, affordable, good quality, accessible, and non-discriminative mental health services. So here, the mental health services does not stick only upon to acute services, like we admit the patient, we treat the patient, and after the treatment is over, it is not. It should not be left like that. So the services should also include halfway home, sheltered homes, or various other community-based rehabilitation centers. So because previously they are mostly institutionalized, and even if they have improved, they are not allowed to go out, or we don't have the resource to make the person live near to the community. But this act mainly stresses upon the fact that as far as possible, those persons with mental illness, those who have recovered, has to be put in a place near to a normal community living. And they have also mentioned about provision to provide pediatric and geriatric services. So long-term stay in mental establishment is to be used only for a short time and as a last resort. So Section 19 deals with the right to community living. So every person who has recovered has the right to live and to be a part of the community, and they should not be segregated. So any person who doesn't have a family support, or if the family has abandoned the person, and they need not be put in a long-term institutional care. And it is a duty of the government to provide the various legal rights to achieve the status of living in the community. And right to protection from cruel and inhuman treatment is dealt in Section 20, which says that every person has a right to live with dignity and to be protected from various forms of abuse, even a verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, which happens in long stay centers. As it is a duty of the government to protect from various abuses, and they should have a safe, hygienic environment with various facilities for leisure activities and religious activities, and they should not be compulsorily employed, and uniform is not a compulsion to stay in the hospital, and no compulsory townshipping should be done. So Section 21 deals with the right to equality and non-discrimination. So here, mental illness is considered equal to a physical illness. So mental illness should not be stigmatized, and they want to project mental illness as a comparison with a general physical illness, and no discrimination on any basis can be entertained. And any person with mental illness has the right to use the ambulance services provided by the state, and they should be included in various insurance schemes. So any child who is less than 3 years should not be separated from the mother who is having an illness, unless the doctor thinks that the child would have some harm because of the mental illness of the mother. If such a decision is made, it is the duty of the treating doctor to review the decision every 15 days. So right to information says that persons with mental illness as well as the nominated representative have the right to know about the various criteria upon which they are admitted, and if suppose they feel that their admission is not based on some standard guidelines, they have the right to make application to the mental health review board. And they also have the right to know about the nature of the illness, the duration of treatment, various side effects, and what is the treatment plan. So then comes right to confidentiality, which says, which is mentioned in Section 23. So all the information related to the person's mental illness, right from treatment to gender conditions, are to be maintained confidential. It is a duty of the institute's doctor. So exceptions here are some information can be shared to the nominated representative and other health professionals in view of improving the treatment and to make them free from the disease. And should, if there is any threat, they can be shared. And this confidentiality can be exempted in case of where the mental health review board requires some information. So right to restrict release of information in respect to the mental illness. So in we are in an era where we share the photograph of important cases. Sometimes we don't take consent, so no photograph or any other information of revealing the identity of the person should be released, even if it is done in a good motive. It is prohibited by the law. And right to access various medical records. They have right to access the records if the mental health doctor professional thinks that releasing such information may harm the individual, then they can conceal that information. If information is withheld, further the mental ill person has the right to apply to the mental health review board to know about the reason for withholding such information. So then they have the right to personal contact and communication. Every individual has a right to refuse some visitors or right to receive some visitors, which may be even a phone calls, and they have the right to use
Rajesh Kannan, 5 more minutes.
email communication, and it is not applicable to members of the Mental Health Review Board, MLA, MP, and nominated representative. And they have the right to legal aid. So they are entitled to have free legal services, and it is the duty of the treating doctor to make them aware of provision for such a right. And finally, they have the right to make complaints about the deficiency in the services they are provided. So these are the various rights which is elaborated in the Mental Care Act. So these are the various models of disability, starting from the medical model to the human rights model. The medical model of disability, it identifies the people with disability. It tries to fix the person, and whereas the human rights model, it's next to the social model, where disability is thought as a problem in the society. So in medical model, the person is tried to fix, whereas in the social and human rights model, and the disabled persons are thought as a right holders, and the state as duty bearer. So the state has the duty to fix the environment or the society so that persons with disability can be incorporated in a normal life. So right-based approach has two important core things. One is ensuring the availability of basic quality of mental health services. Another is to create an enabling environment so that we fix the environment for the persons with disability so that they don't face the stigma and discrimination which they were facing earlier. So this is one of a principle adopted by the Scottish Human Rights Commission for promoting various practices for promoting the rights of persons with mental illness. So P stands for participation. So every person has to participate in making some decision which is going to affect their livelihood. And accountability. So we should have a frequent review mechanism. All admissions are made according to forming a right-based approach, and non-discrimination and empowering, like social advocacy and aware of the rights that they entitled. And legality. So legality is forming a legislation which has to be followed in throughout the nation. So most of the instruments speak about maintaining the inherent dignity and the autonomy of the individual has to be maintained. So inherent dignity differs in two different things. One is a subjective dignity as well as a dignity based upon the mental professional's view, so perspective. So subjective dignity is like, if suppose a person feels that he is not to be compelled to take treatment, that is the dignity of the individual. Whereas sometimes it is the duty of the doctor to make some treatment more compulsive thing, and so that he doesn't lose the dignity because of the mental illness. So it has two different dimensions, and to restore dignity, we can either improve the capability of the individual, or we can change the circumstances in which he is living so that the dignity is restored. So at the clinical practice level, we can have a high quality evidence-based treatment methods so that it reduces the symptom, thereby increasing the capability of an individual to a functional level, and that enhances the person's dignity, in turn promotes the rights of the individual. So this can be practiced at a clinical level. Whereas at the community level, and where it is the duty of the government to provide the basic mental health care, it is already achieved partly by the Mental Health Care Act, and to place them in a least restrictive type of environment. So as far as possible, the person has to be moved towards the community than to be restored in, than to be withheld in a long-term care or a large institutional care for a long time. So there should be a proper review mechanism to review all the admissions made through the made in the hospital, and human resource training and other IEC activities to train all the mental professionals from staff level to lower cadre level, social worker level, so that they are aware of the various legislations in the country, and the social inclusion has to be practiced. And persons with mental illness participation and empowerment is very important. So it is the duty of the psychiatrist to speak for this silent souls, and various budget and political reforms can be done to improve the status of the individuals in the society. To summarize, there has been a paradigm shift in mental care from custodial care in some 100 years ago to a patient-centered approach, and rights of persons with mental illness is the heart and soul of Mental Care Act of 2017, which has three important goals, which mentions about three important goals. One is to not to touch upon the autonomy of the individual, to restore the dignity, and as far as possible to include them in the society. So, though we are not able to fully achieve, it is not Mental Care Act is not fully implemented in the nation. We are in a path to change the attitude of the public towards the mental illness. These are my references, and thank you, sir, once again for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Rajesh Kannan, for the excellent presentation. Actually, you are touched upon the very essential part of this particular topic. It very much useful to everyone of this. Now I invite Dr. Sabari.
At the outset, I thank Dr. Pannisalam sir, the President of Tamil Nadu IPS, for giving me this opportunity for presenting this topic. I also thank Dr. Arul Saravanan, the chairperson of this session, and moderator Dr. Shivabalan sir, and the chief, the scientific committee chairman P.P. Kannan sir, and all the members of the scientific committee. And very good afternoon, good evening for all the participants as well. So at the outset, the topic given to me is quite an open topic. So Dr. Rajesh Kannan has given a clear overview about what is there in the rights of person with mental illness Act as envisaged by our Mental Health Act of 2017. My job is to see how it is in paper and how it is getting translated into the practice. So as I said, it's an open topic. I have tried to compile this topic with various information I am able to get access to, but still there will be lots more information which will be available to people who are actually there in the field, especially the government side as well as people who are practicing. So they will be also knowing how it is being practiced in day-to-day practice. So as I go along the presentation, maybe people can also add on to whatever lacuna deficiencies are there in my presentation. So with that disclaimer, let me start this presentation. So as Dr. Rajesh Kannan has mentioned, the rights of persons with mental illness is seen in the chapter 5 of our Mental Health Act, and it envisages almost 11 rights: right to access to mental health care and rights to community living, etc., up to right to make complaints about deficiency in provisions of services. So I'll try to take each right one by one and see how it is being translated into practice in our real life scenario in our country at present. So coming on to the first right, which is the right to access to mental health care. So the first section is telling that every person should have access to mental health care and treatment from mental health services run or funded by appropriate government. If you look at the map, it shows the districts with government mental health hospitals in our country at present. And if you see, on average, you'll be seeing only 3 to 4 government mental health hospitals across the various states. In our state, we have just one government mental health hospital. And states with yellow shades, they don't have any government mental health hospitals. So overall, in our country, there are just 0.329 mental health outpatient services per 1 lakh population. And in general hospitals, there are just 0.82 beds per 1 lakh people. Okay, so this was taken from this review article, which was published in Curious by Dayani and his friends. So, which shows that actually the mental health infrastructure as envisaged by the Mental Health Care Act and what is in reality, there's a wide, huge gap. Also, out of these 43 government mental health hospitals, the bed strength is almost like just 1.4 per 1 lakh population, and the qualified personnel also are really limited. The psychologist number is 0.047 per 1 lakh, and psychiatrist 0.3 per 1 lakh. Also, the availability of mental health nurses is quite dismal, 0.166 per 1 lakh, and that of social workers is very, very less, the point of 0.033 per 1 lakh. So why it is important is because if you look at the various other rights, it is very important whatever lacuna is there filled in this one to carry forward the rights provided to the patient in the subsequent rights they have mentioned in this act. So unless there is enough number of qualified people, social workers, nurses, it will be difficult for us to fulfill the whatever agenda that the act has given to the treating psychiatrist as a whole. This map also told that it's not only the case as far as the government setting is concerned, even in private setting, the number of hospitals is quite limited. This map shows the districts with mental health NGOs, and in our country we have, in our state we have just 4, and there are many states without even one mental health NGO. All these yellow marked states don't have any mental health NGO. This is the status of the mental health care provision, that is the health providers and their infrastructure that is there currently in our country. And the second section mentions that they should be provided at the affordable cost. The mental health care should be provided at affordable cost, of good quality, efficient quality. It should be accessible geographically to everyone without any discrimination on the basis of gender, sex, sexual orientation, and various other factors they have mentioned. But in reality, in India, the mental health infrastructure is mostly restricted to huge semi-permanent facilities that serve only a small number of people. The reason is the allocation of fund is very limited. If you look at this figure, the mental health budget is quite dismal in our country. It is even lesser than what we see in the most of the low-income countries, which is 1.54. In our country, which is 0.06 of the total health budget, is what allotted to the mental health. And not only this is very low, we have seen over the past few years, every year there is a reduction in the amount of fund that has been allotted to the mental health per se. So in 2019 budget, only 40 crores are allotted to the National Mental Health Program per se. And if it comes to district mental health program, it is further lesser. Just 83.2 lakhs has been allocated, and it has to cover 692 districts across the country. If you look at the division, and it will be almost like not even peanuts, it will be like peanut skin. Okay, so and another factor is that out of the budget that they have allotted, majority, that's almost 93, is been allotted to a particular institute or a hospital. So if you see this figure, 93% of this total expenditure has been given to Nimans and Lokpriya Gopinath Baroda Regional Institute of Mental Health in Assam, whereas only 7% of this expenditure is given to the National Mental Health Program. So this is a huge shortfall of funds. It may eventually manifest as an increase in the burden of mental health illness, along with long-term implications of the country's economy, because it will be difficult for people in various sectors who are providing help to the mental health ill people to provide care that is envisaged by this act, which in long term may produce increased morbidity, mental health morbidity, and that may in turn again produce the implication in the economy of the country per se. And also the act mentioned that without any prejudice, the government should make efforts to provide acute mental health services. Not only acute mental health services, also provide halfway homes, shelter accommodations, and community-based rehabilitation establishments, etc. But the government's own National Commission of Women, they have done a various, they visited various hospitals, mental health hospitals across the country, and they came forward with a review of the psychiatric homes and mental health hospitals of government sector in India. And what they have mentioned is that only institutions with halfway facility are located in the following 9 places: Vadodara, Thrissur, Nimans, Indore, Cuttack, Jodhpur, Hyderabad, Tripura, and Chennai. In IMH, they have this. Other than this, the other rest of the government mental health hospitals doesn't provide any halfway home facility. So this is a very important legislation or important litigation by Gaurav Kumar Bansal. It's a case that happened 4 years back in Supreme Court of India. It had wide ramifications. Lots of, you'll be seeing this case in further parts of my presentation. So in this case, the Supreme Court directed the government for setting up of rehabilitation homes and also issued specific direction to the central government to suggest a roadmap with regard to each state government and union territory with regard to establishment of halfway homes. But in spite of such detailed instructions and guidelines, the current situation is far from satisfactory. This is from the Government National Commission of Women's own report. Next right is the right to community living. So again, this right mentions that people with mental illness, they have a right to live, be a part of the society and should not be segregated from the society, and they should not remain in mental health establishments, but they should be integrated or reunited with their family to the extent possible. Again, the same this is a National Human Rights Commission. They presented a report in January 2023, this year itself. And what they have found is that none of the 46 government mental health institutions had taken effective step for ensuring that mental illness a person could exercise his right to community living without any hindrance. They also mentioned that the more aggravating factor was that in whatever they have inspected, that after recovery also, many patients were not allowed to reunite with the society or family for the purpose of community living. So the problem here is not only lying with the hospital per se, the government hospitals or the doctors per se. In the recent Chennai Psychiatric Society meeting, the IMH director, Dr. Malapan sir, he also presented a topic similar to what I am presenting. And the reality check that the current Mental Health Act in our state per se, he described, in which he mentioned that lots of people are actually willing to go to the community, go back to home, but there are various factors like the family members themselves are not willing to take them home, as well as the paucity of social workers. As I mentioned in the past, it was 0.033 per 1 lakh population. The number of social workers is too less for them to cater to all these people who have got better and still languishing in most of the government mental health hospitals. The health ministry, they also instituted a task force. They also reported that almost over 36% of people in mental hospitals have been there for 1 year or more. And recently in July 23, there was this national conference organized by the National Human Rights Commission on the title Moving Mental Health Beyond Institutions, with the sole theme of making the patient integrated to the community as much as possible. In this conference, the NHRC chairperson, Justice Arun Mishra, he reported that there's a lack of serious coordination among various agencies such as district administration, the police, the mental health center officials to facilitate halfway homes or return of good patient to their families. He also further mentioned that there's a lack of proper infrastructure in some of the mental health institutions, and it resembles more of a lockup situation than anything else. And the figure that he has given is that almost like 2,000 acute patients are languishing in the mental health institutions, which amount to violation of their own rights. Now, coming on to the next right, which is the right to protection from cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. The same report I mentioned earlier, the National Human Rights Commission report of January 2023, it has found that almost all the 46 government mental health institutions across the country were in deplorable conditions, and they depicted a very pathetic handling by the different stakeholders. Again, the resources and the will of the government in providing better conditions for these hospitals is lacking, and we can't put the blame only on the doctors and the hospitals which are running. Next is the right to equality and non-discrimination. This interesting topic, interesting review article again on the mental health and human rights in Indian inquiry by Meenu Anand. It was published in Indian Journal of Social Psychiatry in 2021. What it mentioned is that people with mental illness in India, they encounter human rights violations in meeting with their basic needs, and they're often ostracized from the society, and they fail to receive care they require or the services support they need in order to have a full life in the community. They face discrimination on a daily basis, including the field of education, employment, housing, and most often than not, they are socially excluded. This is with regard to people with mental illness per se. They also mentioned that it is worse in case of women with mental health disorders. Issues related to privacy, hygiene, menstruation, sexual abuse, rape, pregnancy, hysterectomy. These are all the few risks they have been seen in women and with the mental health disorders. And there is also a severe shortage of accessible and appropriate government services for women with psychosocial or intellectual disabilities and their families. It further mentions that analysis of various hospitals who provide treatment for women have mentioned that people who are there, they face range of abuses, including prolonged detention, unsanitary conditions, neglect, involuntary treatment, and violence. There is indeed a gap in services, particularly gender-sensitive healthcare, which is geared towards supporting women and girls with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities. This is with regard to the women with mental health illness. Now, next move on to the discrimination the patient themselves face in which is preventing them from coming and seeking help from our treatment centers. I can take the example of my own hospital. Though it's a private hospital, the ward is psychiatry ward is similar to the other wards. We have a gate in front of our ward. An entrance is gated. So the people, when they come there, they feel that they have been locked up. Okay. So whatever the amount of care that we give, still they have this feeling of being discriminated. And this may prevent them from seeking further help with people like, people with mental illness. So this is a scenario I think most of the hospitals face. And this is one of the important restricting factors for these people with mental illness to come and seek help. And the next important discrimination that we also face, the medical professionals, they have a high proportion of misconception and discriminate attitude towards psychiatry and people with mental illness. Again, our own example or examples in most of the hospitals and medical colleges. Psychiatry will be the first department from which people be taken for other places when there's a shortfall. Okay, if there's a shortfall in the emergency ward, a person from psychiatry will be taken care or taken over. Similarly, the attitude towards psychiatry is very poor among the medical health professionals, as well as the mental health literacy is not only poor among the community members, it is even worst among the professionals working in the tertiary care hospitals themselves. Maybe the reason is the exposure to mental health illness per se is not that good. Maybe the last 10 years or so, the BBS graduates are been posted for clinical psychiatric postings for almost a month or so. I don't know, when I studied, we hardly went to a clinical post. They didn't put us as a clinical posting per se. And the whatever posting we are supposed to go for psychiatry, they have been we've been shunted to anesthesia. This may be the reason why the exposure to psychiatry is very less among the general health practitioners. Maybe 10 decades ago, people who passed out 10 decades ago. The current scenario is changing. It is welcoming, but still it is one of the cause for discrimination. And the next section in this clause right against discrimination is the right to have insurance. Okay, I have a couple of slides to share here because it is very important topic to share. As we mentioned, as we saw earlier, the government sector is very less, and the amount of bed the doctors to provide for them is very less. So here is where the private sector has to chip in. But unfortunately, at present, the private mental health establishments are way too expensive. We can't blame them because the care that they give, the amount of expenses that is required for running a mental health establishment is quite high. Even doctors like us, we might find difficult to get our relatives treated in such hospitals because of the exorbitant cost. Unless and until the insurance covers them, it is going to be a very difficult task. So with this in mind, the same litigation, public interest litigation I was talking about earlier, Gaurav Kumar Bansal, he pointed out that insurance companies were violating the provision of 2017 Act in the Supreme Court. The three-judge bench headed by Justice R.F. Nariman, he called for replies from both the government and the IRDA. And then IRDA instructed all the insurance companies to introduce policies of mental illness by October 2020. Let us see how it is being enforced at present, and what is there in the paper and what is there in practice. So, Ayushman Bharat is the flagship national-wide insurance scheme provided by the government. Initially in 2000, it was launched with 17 packages, but it was reduced to 10 by December 2019 as far as mental health is concerned. The package includes all treatment costs, including pre and post hospitalization. And according to Ayushman Bharat, they fixed the procedure price of 1,500 for the disorders like most of our disorders: mental retardation, organic mental disorders, schizophrenia, and schizotypal delusional disorders, neurotic stress-related disorders, mood disorders, behavioral disorders associated with physiological disturbances and physical factors, as well as the mental and behavioral disorders due to psychoactive substance. I think this mental and behavioral disorders due to psychoactive substance has not been covered by other insurances, but it is covered under the Ayushman Bharat. And they also fixed the charges for ECT and transcranial magnetic stimulation as rupees 3,000 and 1,000 per session respectively. But the problem with this Ayushman Bharat is that to get the affiliation or to get your hospital get affiliated to it is quite a task, and very few private mental hospitals have providing treatment under this Ayushman Bharat. Maybe because the amount given by the government is too less to the compared to the care that is being provided by the hospitals. Moving on to the public insurance companies like National Insurance Company Limited and Oriental Insurance Company Limited. Mental illness policy, which is hospital and insurer only in case of hospitalization, and they have clearly mentioned that their policy brochure that counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy, any kind of psychotherapy which does not require hospitalization, will be excluded from the policy. And also, at the time of taking the policy, if a person is having Alzheimer's or dementia, Parkinson's, they are permanently excluded. This is what in the paper. But according to this review article which appeared in the IJP in 2021, extensive research done by the author found that these insurance companies' website didn't have any specific mental illness plans explicitly mentioned. Now, coming on to the private sector, as of October 2021, the mental health treatment is being provided by HDFC Ergo and Aditya Birla Insurance. Aditya Birla also offer counseling and consultation costs apart from the hospital expenses. In case of Manipal Cigna Health Insurance, mental illnesses are covered under Comprehensive Indemnity Plan, which offers insurance only in case of hospitalization. And Max Bupa Health Insurance Company, in their health recharge insurance plan, have coverage for mental disorders treatment up to some insured, and for some cases only sub limit is applicable for the patients with mental illness. So this is in paper, but again, there are litigations. In practice, most of the private companies, they give some other reason and they reject the claim. There was this particular case where the petitioner paid premium timely for the sum insured for 35 lakhs, but however, when he was claiming the money for the mental illness treatment. He was informed that there is a capping of just 50,000 in case of mental illness, which is clear violation of this Mental Health Act. So this is what is happening. This is just one example, but there's lots of litigation that has been there, which is under review, and still the IRDA is taking cognizance of it, but still there is no clear-cut way for us to get this insurance for all the patients with mental illness. We'll move on to the next right, which is the right for confidentiality. This in this right, they mentioned that the person with mental illness should have confidentiality with respect to his mental health care treatment and physical health care. But you would have known this famous case recently, I mean, the recent past, when this psychologist who was treating, who are actually involved in the therapy of actor Sushant Singh Rajput, who committed suicide. She divulged the details about his mental illness in an interview, and it got published widely. It's a clear-cut violation of this act. This is just one instance, but again, as I told, there are lots of other instances. Recently, death of a child of a music director was also projected, the name, the photograph, the treatment, the hospital from which the patient was getting treatment. Almost everything was there in the public domain. But whether the breach of this confidentiality, which is a public offense, which can lead to up to minimum 6 months to 2 years of imprisonment and cash penalties of up to 5 lakhs, whether this has been enforced is a question. Okay, how far this right is being preserved based on our act? Very, I don't know. I didn't come across any people who have been punished under this offense so far. So next is the right to information with respect to mental illness. This mentioned that no photographs, information relating to people who are actually undergoing treatment in the mental health establishment should come into the public domain. These are the examples of some of the photographs I took from the internet. I have masked the pictures, I masked the faces of these patients, but in actual picture, the face was not masked, which is a clear violation. This is what it is there in practice. Still, people are not sensitized about this act. Next, the right to access to medical records. As Dr. Rajesh Kannan pointed out, all persons with mental illness should have the right to access their basic medical records as may be prescribed. But again, leave alone patients with mental illness, even the physical illness, normal routine patients, medical records are very difficult to access in most of the hospitals. I don't know how about in government hospitals, but in private hospitals, it's still more difficult. And unless and until there is a litigation, then only you'll be able to access it freely. Otherwise, patients, most often than not, they find it difficult to access to it. And in mental illness, it is more severe than that. Next right is the right to legal aid. So far, I've been describing lots of, lacunas. This is one thing which is there, actually, which has been practiced. The National Legal Service Authority, the NALSA, which provides legal services to mental ill and mental disabled persons. They provide legal services to protect the rights of persons with mental illness. They provide assistance in drafting affidavit, notices, replies, applications, and petitions. They assist in resolution of disputes. They provide counseling to prevent disputes. They provide instant advice and information on legal aspects to the people with mental illness. They provide assistance in getting disability pension. They provide monitoring of the follow-up of the legal assistance that has been provided. They encourage amicable settlement of disputes, and they also provide free lawyers to fight cases with involved mentally ill people. The court fee will be paid by the Legal Service Authority themselves, and they also encourage the states to also to establish state-level legal service authority for people with mental illness. Karnataka has it. I don't know whether Nadu is having it. The next right is the right to maintain complaints about the deficiencies in provision of the services. So this act provides that any person with mental illness or his nominated representative should have a right to complain about the deficiencies or provision of care, treatment services in the mental health establishments. But in reality, I don't know how much of such complaints we receive, whether our mental health authority, how much they have received it. Unless and until it has been exposed by a whistleblower or in a routine inspection by a health department officials, like the examples given here. We rarely see such deficiencies being brought to the public purview. If you look at the most of the alcohol rehabilitation, substance rehabilitation centers, most of them have deficiencies, but the amount of complaints that we receive from them is very less, and also the remedies taken for it is very less. In the Dr. Malayappan sir, in the recent meeting in the Chennai Psychiatric Society, he mentioned that some of the complaints received action were taken upon, and some of the rehabilitation centers have been closed. But still, it's just a tip of the iceberg. Lots of other places have deficiencies, and this has not been brought to the purview of the mental health establishment or the mental health boards. To have an overview about the rights of person with mental illness as regard to the Act, I want to quote the white paper which was presented by the MHCA Task Force of IPS 2023-24, who did a 5-year review of the Mental Health Care Act of 2017, which is headed by Dr. Savita Malhotra and her team. What they have mentioned is, as I quote, chapters on rights of people with mental illness make access to mental care from a government-funded agency as a statutory universal right, and makes it incumbent upon the government to provide full range of services for all the state of population, also fulfill all the given rights. It also highlights integration of mental health care into general health care services at all levels, and the Act does not provide any, but however, this is what is there in the paper, but however, the Act does not provide any guidance or roadmap to achieve these objectives. In reality, most of these services have lack of manpower infrastructure. Most glaring omission is that mental health care is completely segregated from general health care in the Act, which is not only contradicts its own stated objective, but also stigmatizes mental health illness. To arrange the needed services and infrastructure as per the mandate of Act will cost a fortune. Well, they estimate that it will cost around 94 crores, but as we saw in the initial slides, the budget allocation is very, very less when compared to this. So they summarize that the Act is good. The Act provides of lots of rights to the people with mental illness, but the at present, what is there in reality is far from what is there in the Act, what is there in the paper. Along with it, I want to touch upon a couple of more concepts which was introduced in the Mental Health Care Act, the nominated representative and advanced directive. These two concepts were introduced primarily to improve or to protect the rights of people with mental illness, because both empowers the patients as well as their relatives to have a say in the treatment and various other aspects of management and whether a right to get treated or not to get treated. But again, the same task force has given us the critique of how it is being currently practiced in our country. With regard to the Act on the provision on national nominated representative, this clause gives wide-ranging powers and duties to the appointed nominated representative about treatment of person with mental illness. But in a country like India, in which family who brings the people with mental illness for treatment, they should be considered as a national guardian and caretaker, and Act should recognize the family as such. Patients suffering from psychosis, especially delusion hallucinations, whenever it is being towards the family members, they may actually impair the treatment process, because they may remove them as a nominated representative, and they may nominate someone who may be having some vested interest as a nominated individual. This may alienate the family and put them under suspicion, and it is against the social ethos of society. This will impair the patient's treatment in a long run. Though this concept has been borrowed from the Western law, where families are missing, but unlike in our country. And the reality check is that in the last 5 years of existence of this Act, in the survey done by this task force, no one has used this concept in the clinical practice, is what they are saying. This concept needs to be removed, and it should be made applicable only if the family is missing. And another issue is that people with people who don't have home or who are wandering mentally ill, it puts the duty of the psychiatrist to search for non-nominated representative. It should not be the case, is what the task force is recommending. And finally, the status of the advance directive. Again, what the task force they are mentioning is that this clause overlaps with the capacity assessment, and it presupposes that patient has sufficient and correct knowledge about treatment options and method currently available for mental illness. But in reality, it is opposite. I don't know, as we saw in the earlier slides, the mental health literacy among doctors itself is very less. So if you look at it in the general population, it is very, very poor. So general public with the least knowledgeable are rather misinformed about mental illness and treatment. It will be difficult for them to have an objective advance directive made. So most patients have to be educated and guided about the treatment options and their potentials initially. And if they are able to provide advance directive after getting knowledge, then it can be provided. But people with poor knowledge, without proper information, and now you know how people Google and find out lots of misinformation. So such people are going to give advance directive. It is going to go against the ethical principles of doctors to do no harm, and it might impede in the timely treatment of the patients. And again, in the reality, the task force found that in the survey, no one has encountered advance directive in their clinical practice. So, like this is also a concept borrowed from the Western law, and they recommend it needs to be removed, or it should be made optional only for those people who wants it, and it should not be made mandatory for everyone. So with this, I want to summarize that the right of people with mental illness as envisaged by the Mental Health Act, what is there in the paper and what is there in the practice, we have a long way to go. It is like climbing the Everest at present, but with government will, enough resources, I think doctors, we are always willing to provide, follow whatever the act is trying to say, but the infrastructure and resources, everything is provided, and it will be easier for us to translate whatever is there in the paper into practice. With this, I thank the organizers of this program, especially our President Pannisalam sir, for giving me this opportunity to present on this topic. As I told in the initial part of my presentation, if I missed out on anything, if something there is to add, I invite people who are there who have a better knowledge about it than me to share it to the forum. Thank you, one and all, for the opportunity given to me.
It's a wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Very elaborative, very relevant points. This will be useful to everyone. You presented very well, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now we will go for any questions. So we had a very good presentation by both speakers. It's very elaborative, and they touched upon the very essential part of the present the problems. It's not a problem; it's a challenge for every psychiatrist. So now the session is open for.
Yeah. My question to Dr. Sridhar. We have been talking a lot about Mental Health Care Act 2017, but there are still violations of rampant in nature is going around.
Yes, sir.
We are not having the system in place. That is, even though we have system in place, we have difficulty in executing because the resource allocation is not adequate. That is space and the bench and the infrastructure to each district review board and the facilities for reaching the that particular homes. And I think we need to collaborate with other agencies too. Did you come across any statistics? You posted 2 paper clips. Do you have any statistics about Tamil Nadu scenario? Our state mental authority had presented a current scenario last week. But do you have any other statistics from any other resources?
Actually, both the papers were all national level papers, sir. So I didn't specifically find anything with regard to our Tamil Nadu state. So most of my information I shared about our state is based on what our AMH directors have presented in the meeting that we had a couple of weeks back.
My understanding is there are about 150 centers around Chennai, de-addiction centers. But there are good centers. There are centers which have no knowledge about organizing a care delivery. So there are a lot of issues. I think we are not having exact data on this. But one thing is, in the discussion in the National Forum, we had found that we are far ahead of many other northern states.
Yes, sir.
We are much ahead.
Yes, sir.
But Sridhar sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, every psychiatric patient have a right to get treatment. That's as per the Mental Health Care Act. But how many number of beds there are available in India? Because the National Mental Health Survey says that 150 million, that means 15 crore people are affected with mental illness. Around the severe mental illness, almost 7 to 8 crore people are affected with mental illness. So severe mental illness, most of them, they need admission in patient care. How many beds are there in India?
Yes, sir. So as I quoted in the presentation, for 1 lakh population, it is hardly 1 bed available in government settings, sir. The data about the private setting is not available as far as, as of now. But in government mental health institutions, it is 1 lakh population, only 1 bed is available.
So a lot of the act itself is good, looks good for patients with rights for the mental illness.
Yes, sir. So that is a basic provision itself. Yeah.
Talks a lot of things about these rights about the mental illness. I think that the laws based on this UN Convention on Human Rights, I think it's a recognized model. But in our Indian setup, it's very difficult to implement. It's paper, everything is good. But when you come to the practice, it take long year to implement this Mental Health Care Act in our India, especially rights of the person with mental illness. Because number of beds is very less. We know that's only, I think I heard that only 56,000 beds, psychiatric beds in India, in the government hospital. Maybe 2 times or 3 times, maybe 1 lakh or 2 lakhs beds maybe in India. But there's only 7 crore people with severe mental illness. So it takes long time. When the budget, how much budget allocations for mental health care, sir, in India?
Sir, it was around 570 crores, around 570 crores.
What percent?
Very, very minimal.
What percent for the mental?
0.03% of the health budget, sir.
It's
Which is lower than the lower income countries.
Yeah, very, very less. And also the community, how do you think, sir, for community, the patient can treatment in the community level?
Yes, sir. Actually, the Act says that we should improve upon the halfway homes and also community living centers for people with mental illness. But as I mentioned, only the 9 cities, they have halfway homes with respect to the government owned halfway homes. And most of the private halfway homes may be quite exorbitantly cost for the common public to get access to.
In Tamil Nadu, any halfway homes?
Sir, our IMH, we have a halfway home.
Other than Dr. Kannan, other than IMH, any government?
Government, nothing, sir.
Sir, other than government?
Any halfway homes or institutions?
Sir, other than, excuse me, sir, other than government, we are having, I'm a Chennai district psychiatrist. Other than IMH, we are having 5 halfway homes. 1 in Vellore, Kanyakumari, Madurai, Ramnad, and Trichy, sir.
Okay.
So government run the nursing, there's homes, halfway homes?
Yes, sir, it's run by the government.
Fully government or all collaborate with the NGOs?
It's run by the government, sir, with a differently abled social welfare department, sir.
Sir, to add on your point, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes. The budget you said, Dr. Sridhar, it is around some 1,100 crore allocated by national government. Because I was searching for recent debate within the National Forum about 730 crore were allocated for NIMHANS.
Yes,
And
sir.
another
Yes, sir.
200 crore.
93%.
Sorry?
Yes, sir. 93% for NIMHANS and the Assam hospital.
Other CIP and another one central mental hospital. So there are 3 institutions taking up about 90 to 95% of the central government budget allocation. Only 5% is allocated to district mental health program. Today's Hindu center page article, English Hindu, one IIT academician, I think, she was talking about the central government budget was biased toward raising digital mental health, the telemanas and other things. They are not talking about setting up infrastructure and other things. I think I will post it in the academic forum today. So the budget is highly inadequate, and definitely we need to speak about it in multiple forums. Then only we can get it.
Budget should be decentralized.
Even for the fund allocated to the demands and other institute, the most of the fund is for salary only. It is not for any the patient-oriented programs. It is most of the mental health budget spent on the salary for the employee in the demands as well as in the another institute. Regarding this topic, I already written in the Tamil Hindu Central page. Around the Nirmala Sita, Finance Minister announced such a fund for the telemanas program. I written an article about how the mental health budget has been centralized, that has to be decentralized. Like that one article I written in Tamil Hindu. Even for this fund, that is mainly spent only for the salary. It's very, very limited. The planning is very, very much. It is the shortage is there in the policy and planning.
Correct, Balan. As you said, frequently people talk about NIMHANS, TIMHANS. In TIMHANS, the future TIMHANS, that is current IMH, there are 2 administrative officers. Whereas if you go to NIMHANS, there are 86 RDO level officers. 86, the non-faculty grade A officers. We cannot equate IMH and NIMHANS. It's all only in name. I think we would all be fooled by all these tricks. NIMHANS, TIMHANS. I think every member of our society should understand the nitty-gritty issues related to budgetary allocation, manpower required, and we cannot equate IMH with a private institution because it has its own dynamics, no? Hospital, private government hospital. When I compare the IMH with other government hospitals, I think the staff are working hard. Only thing is, we have to tune the IMH for the developments in mental health.
For which we need budgets. So nowadays, even state government is not very much spending money even for the health. Because state government completely depends on the NHM fund for running the health infrastructure, not only in the mental health. So it's even for the fund allocated to the DMHP, that has been diverted to the non-communicable disease as far as the Tamil Nadu government is concerned. So it's very, very, the budget, the fund is not there. So we cannot blame the other infrastructure, machinery in mental health.
It is said 19,000 employees are paid salary from NHM fund. 19,000.
It completely depends on the NHM. Even state government is completely dependent. That is why for the past 3 or 4 years, there is no regular employment has been made by the state government in the health. All the employees will be contractual employees, even for the social worker, even for a doctor, even for a psychiatrist. So that is why even for that de-addiction center, ECRC center that has been closed, that ECRC center has been funded by the NHM. NHM only not willing to pay money for that ECRC. It is not about state government. So the state government completely depends on the NHM fund running the health infrastructure as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. Thank you. Thank you. Very wonderful and meaningful session we had. Any other want to share any opinion on this topic?
President sir,
Yes, Dr. Kannan.
You all reflect our requirements. That is a government Apex Institute and other peripheral institutes need to be strengthened. We have to represent with the government to get more fund. for our field.
Yes, sir. That will do that, sir. That will do.
Yes, sir.
Fund is the main things we need to implement all over. Whatever the project we want to do, we need an adequate fund. And the fund has to be spent on that, what it was been allotted. But I think that maybe people in the government sector knows about whatever the fund allotted for the mental health. Really, it was go to that, serve the purpose, or being diverted to some other things. I think we have to look into that. And we can address this issue, sir. We can address this issue. We can partner with the government. We have a committee, a government license committee we have formed. So through the committee, we can give a representative to the government.
Now I invite Dr. Arul Saraman, chairperson, for concluding remarks.
I think he is not there. Because
Abhiram is there?
Yeah, Abhiram is there.
Yes.
Yes, madam. So over to you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's time to delay a vote of thanks. It takes less than a minute, sorry. Takes immense pleasure to thank Dr. Panneerselvam sir, President in IPS, and other office bearers, Dr. Sivasailam sir, Sivailangu sir, and Dr. Sabrin sir, for organizing this wonderful monthly Enrich Webinar series. Really, it's an academic enrichment, sir. I sincerely thank speakers Dr. Rajesh Kannan sir and Dr. Sabri sir for their excellent presentation. I am very glad to thank Chairperson Dr. Arul Saravanan sir and Dr. Shivabalan sir who came forward to chair and moderate the session. I would like to thank Dr. P.P. Kannan sir, Scientific Committee Chairman, who acts as a pillar for Scientific Committee and supports academic sessions. And I also thank other Scientific Committee members and participants who attended this event and made this session lively. I also extend my thanks to eastwestpharma who supported us to host this event. Finally, we thank all the people who have taken much effort in the process of making this event very successful. Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kannan, Sivabalan. Dr. Sabri sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Rajesh Kannan, thank you.
Rajesh,
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.